Hey there. Today we are going to start investigating or continue to investigate one of the central questions of our course, which is what makes us sick. But we're going to go beyond what we sort of how we have been talking about it in a purely pathogen by medical biological perspective and look at social determinants of disease. So, sort of the classic more old school definition is basically that disease is purely medical and biological. Like there's no that is what causes one to be sick. Our understanding of disease in this way, from a medical perspective, it does shift and change as we learn more about disease. So as technologies advance, we understand more about bacteria and viruses. And obviously, as genetics continues to advance, we're learning more about diseases caused by that factor. The new sort of science right now is looking at how our microbiomes affect our health. So our understandings do change over time, but this agent theory is the idea that something biological is causing is the main cause of disease. And those can either be infectious pathogens, a chemical deficiency, or some sort of genetic factor. So something's not functioning right on a biological perspective. And really no one believes this anymore. We all know that there's a lot more to disease than just this. This is sort of a reductive viewpoint, but this is sort of like a classic sort of like one lens medical view. Okay, so instead, we actually have this sort of view that we take now, which is that that there are social elements to being sick, or the social determinants of health. Here's the World Health Organization definition. These are all the social factors external to an individual that may not seem relevant to health, like they don't make an obvious connection, but ultimately shape the conditions in which people live, work, and grow. And that will either promote well-being, that can both promote well-being and confer or put off disease risk. So I'll let you sort of come back to this. So what are these determinants? There's a lot of debate around this. I really like the Canadian definition, which I link here, and they talk about, I think it's got the longest list. I believe there's 12 from Canada. So you can look through those at your leisure. But it's really some ideas here that there are some biological factors that are included, but those are not necessarily the most important. They talk about structural elements, things that exist outside of you, such as healthcare, employment, education opportunities, literacy rates. You also have personal factors, which are healthy behaviors. Obviously, we know those are important, but also they talk about childhood mechanisms and how you childhood experiences and how you cope with those. So if you've had a traumatic childhood experience, how are you approaching that? And they also talk about race, gender, and other cultural elements, which obviously are interesting because they may play themselves out differently depending on the context that you're living within. Okay, I'm not going to read you this whole definition, but I will say the sort of modern theory of public health and global health is that we definitely need to understand these social determinants of health in order to have a full picture of the health of a region, a community, an area. To fully understand a disease, we have to look at the context that exists within, the social context that exists within. So that is sort of this. You can read through that. You have a link to this. So these determinants also exist on different levels. So this is all from a Harvard course, and they talk about 3 levels of causes. There's the distal cause, which is like it's not necessarily around the individual. This is sort of the larger cultural structures or infrastructure that an individual lives within. So if you look here, they've got a description. education, the income structures, the housing structure that people live in, air quality, access to clean water, how safe the roads are, all those things. So intermediate causes are sort of the next level closer: relationships, social causes, social context. So that would maybe be the community you find yourself within. And the proximal cause is sort of the individual itself, the things that affect them. So maybe if it's something around the idea of sort of behavioral patterns, if you're washing your hands, are you smoking? These sorts of things would all be sort of a proximal cause. Great. So I'm going to go through some of these. So these are some examples. Again, I'm not going to read these to you, but I will go through this example. So the distal level is that larger level. If you think about HIV, there's two sort of factors, distal factors, that may cause an individual, that may play into an individual's chances of getting HIV, and that may be around education, and how well people are, the cause of this disease is communicated, as well as, oh yes, and then another one is how women's status in society. So this is proven to be a big distal cause of HIV. So women's status in society is a huge plays a big role, and you can read about why here. The intermediate level is that one step closer. So that may have to do with sort of the conditions that one works within, or their social context. So depending on your work environment and your social environment, what are people doing around you? What risk factors are you exposed to in those contexts? And then the proximal level are the ones that is that individual level, like what somebody's doing on their own. Are they engaging in safe behaviors that will prevent HIV infection? Are they taking their medication if they happen to have HIV and they're a pregnant woman? Are they engaging these behaviors that will limit risks to themselves and to others? Here are the sources I used. This is a little longer than I meant to say, but hopefully this was a helpful presentation, and you have access to this, and certainly let your teacher know if you have any questions about any of this information.